steps from the Capitol in Cheyenne with reporters in your hometown. These are the top stories from the Cowboy State Daily News Center.
It's time to take a look at what's happening around Wyoming for Tuesday, November 25th. I'm Mac Watson, and this newscast is brought to you by the University of Wyoming Center on Aging. Did you know that 1 in 3 Wyoming adults have pre-diabetes and most don't realize it? Are you tough enough to know your numbers? Take the quiz at findoutwy.org. 3 hunters with bull elk tags are claiming that after they helicoptered into an isolated public land area in the Bighorn Mountains and killed bull elk, an adjacent landowner tried to swipe one of their trophy elk heads. Cowboy State Daily's Mark Hines reports that there was a confrontation between the hunters and the landowner.
They were headed back out from camp to go retrieve one of the elk quarters, and here's this dude apparently trying to walk off with one of the elk heads. And so they went down and they confronted the guy and found out, at least this guy claimed, that it was one of the adjacent landowners. One of the ranchers had come and was trying to steal this elk head. They're not really sure why, but he expressed to them that he didn't want them there. He didn't want them hunting there. They said, look, here's the maps. Here's where we are. This is public land. And so the guy relented and gave the elk head back.
Now, the alleged incident is under investigation, so Wyoming Game and Fish can't comment on it. Sheridan Region spokeswoman Christina Schmidt stated in an email response to Cowboy State Daily. After truckers complained of illegal immigrant counterparts, Wyoming law enforcement and ICE conducted an operation last week targeting truckers bypassing the port of entry near the Colorado border. Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland reports that authorities are saying that out of 205 contacts made, 40 truckers are now being processed.
So Colorado has laws that limit the extent to which local law enforcement can work with ICE, whereas Wyoming has the opposite, a very ICE permissive environment and several sheriff's agents that actually have agreements with ICE. And so if you are trying to crack down on undocumented truckers, for example, that border between Wyoming and Colorado is probably a pretty right place to do it. And that's what they did.
Laramie County Sheriff Brian Kozak tells Cowboy State Daily that his office, ICE, and Wyoming Highway Patrol collaborated for 3 days in Laramie County, specifically targeting commercial drivers who used county roads to avoid the port of entry. Wyoming ranchers say the closure of Tyson's Lexington, Nebraska plant is a distress signal for cattlemen and consumers. Cowboy State Daily's Renee Jean reports that ranchers are saying that fixing things will require rewriting the Meat Inspection Act.
What they're looking for is the ability to sell across state lines. Right now, even though state inspections follow the same laws that federal inspections do, even though they have to meet the same kind of criteria, they have to make sure the meat is safe, right? Even though it's safe to eat in Wyoming when it's state inspected, as soon as it crosses the state line, it's illegal. Somehow it's not safe to eat in Montana, even though it was safe in Wyoming.
Tyson Foods announced that it's closing the Nebraska meatpacking plant in January, and that is a big distress signal for the industry, so Wyoming cattle ranchers say. It's a red flare for trouble ahead, not just for meatpackers, but also for cattlemen. A 23-year-old Evanston man accused of fatally shooting his dad early Saturday morning wrote in a court form that he acted in self-defense. Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland says that Ethan Groz says he didn't know who was breaking into his room and he didn't mean to kill anyone.
He said he didn't know who was trying to get in his room at 4 a.m. He and his dad had been arguing that Friday that he told police dad had been drinking. And he also, in a court document, said, I didn't know who was trying to get into my room 4 a.m. after all of that. He's charged with second-degree murder, which is 20 years to life if you're convicted. But in Wyoming, he has a chance to launch, if he wishes, he has a chance to launch what's called a Johns hearing, where he can argue that he acted in self-defense.
According to the circuit court clerk, Groz appeared Monday morning in Evanston Circuit Court. His preliminary hearing, where he'll have the chance to argue the state's assertion of probable cause, is set for December 1st. I'll be back with more news from Cowboy State Daily right after this.
The weather's turning oh so frightful this time of year, but those excavation projects, they will persevere. I'm Jan Warren for One Call of Wyoming, here to remind you that no matter how big or how small your digging project is, contacting 811 2 full business days before you begin is required by state law. So stay safe unwrapping presents, not utility lines. From all of us at One Call of Wyoming, happy holidays.
Cowboy State Daily News continues now. Trump and congressional allies like the representative from Wyoming, Harriet Hageman, are undoing Biden-era land and leasing rules to expand coal, oil, and gas in Wyoming's Powder River Basin. Cowboy State Daily's David Madison reports that this is uncharted territory, and many questions from opponents are being asked.
The sources I spoke to said we haven't been here before. Congress has not gotten this involved in an approved and moving forward resource management plan. What happens next? Is there a new process? There's a lot of questions from those watching this space and the coal industry and how public lands are managed.
Opponents say that undoing these regulations gut environmental regulations and could leave taxpayers on the hook for huge cleanup costs. Survival of the fittest produces resilient genetics in nature, yes, we know that. But as Cowboy State Daily's Renee Jean reports, Lucky 7 rancher Jim Jensen says he's using the extreme conditions on his Boulder, Wyoming ranch to grow super cows.
8 months out of the year, there are freezing temperatures at night, at least, if not during the day. And so you got a 4-month period there where things are golden and there's no freezing temperatures. It's a challenging environment. Having a little bit harder ability to survive translates everywhere else as better economics for the cattle ranchers. That's another way that maybe some of these high prices can be solved if you have better genetics.
Jensen is a 5th-generation rancher, and his family's been raising cattle in Boulder since 1895. They know a thing or two about the area, and they believe it's earned its stripes when it comes to harsh conditions, particularly in winter. Leaders in Campbell County and Gillette are at odds about BWXT's plan to bring high-tech nuclear fuels manufacturing to town. Cowboy State Daily's David Madison reports that Governor Mark Gordon is considering a $100 million state grant for the project.
The mayor of Gillette told me outside of oil and gas and coal, this $100 million would represent, one of the largest, if not the largest single investment in something other than fossil fuels. I guess when it combines, it's perhaps over $500 million. Really, when you talk about what the company's putting in, all for 200 jobs, all for a head start, shall we say, or a place in the race to build this nuclear future. Of course, that comes with a lot of controversy and differing opinions, and Gillette is divided.
Now Governor Gordon is assessing the public's comments and will decide how to spend this money through the Wyoming Energy Authority. A 120-year-old tortoise named Orville, along with 5 others, survived a devastating fire at Reptile Gardens in South Dakota on Friday. Cowboy State Daily's Andrew Rossi reports that about 80 to 90 other reptiles, including alligators and other tortoises, were unfortunately killed.
All we know is that the fire marshal believes it was some sort of electrical issue that consumed the whole building, which was an off-exhibit storage facility for a bunch of American alligators and smaller tortoise species. And unfortunately, none of the animals that were in the fire survived. But the iconic animals that most people love, like the giant Aldabra tortoises and Maniac, who's a large saltwater crocodile, they were in the Big Sky Dome, which is the central attraction at Reptile Gardens, and they were totally unaffected by the fires. A huge loss. Everyone at Reptile Gardens is feeling it.
John Brocklesby, who manages Reptile Gardens public relations, tells Cowboy State Daily that the fire was reported about 12:40 a.m. on Friday, and the Rockerville Volunteer Fire Department responded to an active fire in a detached agricultural shelter. And that's today's news. Get your free digital subscription to Wyoming's only statewide newspaper by hitting the daily newsletter button at cowboystatedaily.com. And you can listen to this newscast every day by clicking subscribe on our YouTube channel or listen to us on your favorite podcast app. Thanks for listening. I'm Mac Watson for Cowboy State Daily.